Hi, I'm Tom Stevenson and welcome to Construction Business Management. In this video lecture, we're going to be discussing the marketing plan. We're going to be looking at, do you know who your customer is? We're also going to be discussing the 4 P's of marketing. In the next few lectures, we're going to be looking at how sales and marketing combine along with your overall business plan, your business strategy, your mission, your vision, all of these elements, how they're coming together. Now, we've shot a number of video lectures earlier on, so if you haven't watched those, you can look in the description and you'll see a listing of other video lectures. If you click subscribe and you go to the playlist, Construction Business Management, you'll see all the video lectures listed. So let's dive in. As I mentioned, today we're going to be looking at, in this particular video, the business plan and how to apply the 4 P's to a business marketing plan specifically, and to be able to identify an appropriate market segment for your business. Not every construction business can deal with every facet of construction. It's kind of a folly to try to be everything to everybody. And if you look around, you'll see that most construction companies have a sort of specific niche area that they identify with. Now, some of the larger construction companies, they do identify in a number of blocks and areas of construction, and they've sort of divisionalized those areas as they've grown over the years. Part of that can be their strategy too, because they want to diversify in case there's different ups and downs in the marketplace, because we also have to consider the external environment. So marketing defined, it's really a system of interacting business activities that are really designed to plan, price, promote, distribute, want-satisfying products and services to current and potential customers. Well, that's kind of a mouthful, right? It's a total system interacting with a bunch of things. But the truth of it is, that's what a business is. It's an interaction of a whole bunch of different systems and processes. And if you have a good understanding of where you're trying to drive your business towards, then you can structure a marketing plan that helps to contribute to that. So that's why some of the background things that we've discussed in previous video lectures, like goal setting and how do you achieve it and how do you design it, are important contributors to this discussion as well. In Marketing 101 type courses, when I did my MBA and my undergraduate in business, there were these 4 P's that were always discussed, and sort of like the basic fundamentals of marketing: product, price, place, and promotion. And we can elaborate, and there's sometimes different definitions of how we want to view it. And then construction's a unique industry unto itself. It's a little bit different than selling chewing gum or something like that, right? So we have to identify how does it impact construction. So we'll go through that and we'll look at the different ones and see how that comes to play. The marketing plan is really to align with the overall vision and business goals. And part of that marketing plan too is identifying the specific areas. So it's kind of a collaboration engagement between the different parts of the business. And of course, if you're a small business, you're the chief cook and bottle washer. So you're the head of marketing and you're the head of construction as well. So you've got many hats that you're actually wearing: head of estimating, head of client relations, human resource management, etc. But if you're a large business, then you do have different people who their responsibilities are in specific areas, but they can also be great contributors to the overall structure and drive of the business, where you're trying to take it. And they should be, because there may be some limitations in one part that they would have a better understanding of their section. It's when you get that collaboration and engagement that it's important. So have no fear, though, if you're a smaller entrepreneur, it just means that you have to look outside a little bit more, do a little bit more research, get a little bit more input, so that you're not sort of stuck in your own view, the inside view. You want to get the outside view contributing as well. So it should be able to contribute to help your business grow, to sustain the business as well. And there's a bunch of elements that we have to think about there. And if you're going to maybe go into a different area or a different sector, or seize upon an opportunity, you want to know how you're going to be able to promote that. So it does tie with our financials, of course. If we're looking at sales numbers, how do we increase our sales numbers? If we're looking at our income statement and we're doing a pro forma projection, this is where the marketing plan ties in with the financial aspect. If you're setting goals that you're going to achieve so much in sales, well, then the next question is, how are you going to get those sales? And what are the things that you're going to have to do to increase your sales? Some of it may be to retain existing clients, but others is to aggressively go after getting new clients and getting the right clients for the type of work that you do. And of course, if we're doing that, we have to invest in it too. There's a cost, whether we just look at the cost of your time or whether we look at the cost of advertising, or renting a booth at a home show. You can list out the different ways, and we'll talk about that in another section. But that's going to have a cost. So for that money, how much are we going to get back, right? We don't want it to be a sinkhole that we're advertising and we're not getting a return on that investment. So what does that mean to us? And that's why we talked about return on investment in the previous video lecture. So you have some comprehension of what that means. If we put $1,000 into our marketing plan, what kind of profit does that bring back to us, or potential? And sometimes you can't exactly quantify it. Sometimes it's a qualitative number as well, because you can market something with an advertising program today, especially in construction, but a consumer might not decide to act on it till months or even sometimes years later, but they remembered your brand. So that's helpful, or they got your card at some event. So that's helpful too. We want to build that recognition of the business's brand in the marketplace. Now today, with social media and the different ways that we can do that, it's like a lot of opportunities there. And a lot of them aren't very expensive. So if you're on a tight budget, that can be done very inexpensively. And even with the larger construction companies, they're able to do it quite efficiently by having the CEO have a blog, as an example, by doing some YouTube videos like this. That can be very, very helpful depending on your niche to build your brand. And so for it to be effective and sustainable, you really need to understand your purpose. That's why we spent so much time on the first video lecture and second video lecture on really understanding what your purpose is, your mission is, and your vision, where you want to go with it, because that helps to align things. Otherwise, maybe you're just throwing money here, but you're trying to go there, or you really don't know where you want to go. And it's kind of like you're in the middle of the ocean and you're just kind of being driven by the currents. Much better to have a plan of where you want to take the business. Doesn't mean the plan won't change. You know, we live in a VUCA world. We've got a lot of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. But if we have a target and we can align and we can get some momentum going in that direction, we can really be successful, right? And that's what Jim Collins would call the flywheel approach in Good to Great, how to make a good company a great company. So in all cases, the marketing plan needs to direct your efforts towards adding value to the customer, right? Satisfying the customer. And you satisfy the customer when you add value to them and to what they value, and understand what they value. So you can be thinking about that you need to develop a competitive advantage over other contractors, and how long or sustainable that competitive advantage is. It kind of depends. You want to differentiate your product or service if that's possible, because there is a lot of competition in construction. There's a lot of companies that are very, very busy, and smaller companies that they have more than enough work that they want. But at the same time, there's times and periods where all of a sudden it dries up and you don't have enough work. So you want to be able to ensure that you have a steady flow of work, because if you've worked really hard to build a strong team, you want to make sure that you have enough revenue flows that are coming in to support that team, to pay for that team, and at the same time be profitable. And you want to try to mitigate some of the ebbs and flows that occur in construction at times, so you keep a very strong core team. And that will help your business as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to human resource management areas and motivation and engagement. we really need to think that our competitive advantage and differentiation of product must be better than our competitors. Why does somebody want to do work with us? Why? Why you, right? Why not the other contractor? It might be in your interactions with them. It might be in your sincerity and your engagement. It might be on how quickly you answer calls. It might be on your brand and reputation and referrals from other clients. There's a multitude of things that you can do to build your success in that area. And the good thing is, and I'm telling you this for sure, there's a lot of construction companies, quite frankly, they're not very good. Quite frankly, they're not very good. So it goes back to the Pareto principle, Pareto's law, the 20-80 rule, right? And I'm going to say there's 20% of contractors that are very good, and I'm going to say 80% not so good. And you can tier them down by level as you go down towards the bottom. We've all heard about contractors that do shoddy work, that overprice things, that don't answer calls, that don't keep to a schedule, that don't communicate properly or effectively with their clients. Big opportunity in the construction sector to add value to the client, reduce waste, return calls very effectively. I can go on and on and on this list. So it's a good thing. It's nice. It's nice that this sector has that opportunity in it. Some sectors, it's a pretty tight sector. Others, you've got a little bit more dichotomy going. I'm going to say in construction, there's a dichotomy in the type of service that's being provided by different levels of contractors. And then you've got to look at the different areas. GCs, what they do. Trade partners, what they do, right? Suppliers, what they do. Consultants, what they do. And there's all these opportunities. The space between the spaces, if you will. So overall, this leads to the customer getting better products at lower prices in the marketplace. If you're providing a competitive advantage, it means you're doing something better. You're creating something that's adding a little bit more value. But you know what? It doesn't last forever because other people will see that, the smarter ones, and they will go after it, right? But if you're always innovating, if you're always improving, then you can stay ahead that way. Can't stay in a stagnated state. So the marketing plan should clearly answer the question, why do I want to purchase your goods and services over someone else's, as I just said? What value will you provide to me that I can't get from someone else? Sort of the value question or the value equation. What do I have to do, right, that adds value to the other party? And that really means that we have to think of a lot of things. Now, if you're in the construction sector and you're ready to start a business, or usually this construction business management course comes later in a program when we're in college and university settings. That's not semester 101. You've done previous studies. And if we want to think about project management, there's that core element of the constraint triangle where we've got time, cost, quality. We've got scope and we've got safety, typically we're looking at in construction, right? And if we want to look at that, if something needs to be done faster, it typically will cost more. If we look at that interrelationship there, if you want it done faster, then that might mean overtime, that might mean extra equipment, a number of other factors that fall into there. It might mean less activity, less productivity because we're stacking some of the work in a tight physical area. But if time is of the essence, then that can have an impact on cost. You need to put yourself in your client's shoes and really understand who are my client and understand it from their perspective. And I say this over and over again. The book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, it's really the main outcome is, can you view things from the other person's perspective? Can you really put yourself in their shoes? You know what? In reality, it's very difficult to put yourself exactly, but very often you can do a reasonable job when we're trying to come to a better comprehension of who our clients are and what they desire. Because that also helps you answer the question, right? What value can you provide to me that I can't get from someone else? If they really want it on time and you're really good at doing things on time, better than your competition, there you go. There's your value added. Maybe that's not your secret sauce. Maybe your secret sauce is doing very creative, innovative type projects in a design build process that really sort of wells the end product aspect. That's a different aspect. It may not be that it's done quickly, but it's done at a very high quality level, right? Or maybe you're, as I've got coming up in another slide, the low cost producer of something. For a lot of people, that's what they're after. For a lot of government agencies, within reason, that's what they are after. And so you really have to think about who are your clients and what are you trying to target and what are you trying to go after? Or if you have a client come to you, really understand what do we need to do to provide value to them, right? That will secure us this work. So that's that triangle that I said. And I always think of these as goals, as I've mentioned earlier in the course. And of course, you can usually satisfy more than one. And if we do put our lean construction hats on, we try to satisfy them all. But you've got to understand that some clients, this is the optimum as opposed to this. You know, we're building our dream home and we're multi-millionaires. Quality, I think this is the Vanderbilt mansion, if I remember when we were in Rhode Island. So if we're thinking about quality, like this was, Vanderbilt being one of the early billionaires, railway billionaires in the 1800s. If we think about quality, that's the driver, right? If it takes a little bit longer, so be it. We want to wait for this Carrara marble that's coming from Italy. It's not good to substitute. We won't accept the substitute marble because this is what we want. Or this hand-carved sort of molding that is going to accentuate something. We're willing to wait. We're willing to pay for it, right? So that's for that client. Or you're building your dream home, same idea, right? Same idea. You're building your dream home and you're staying at your mother-in-law's right now. And you're not happy about it, right? You want to get in as fast as possible. You know what? Then all of a sudden, okay, skip the marble from Italy. What do we got that's from Canada? Boom, done, right? What is the individual client thinking about? What are they looking at? This is big when we talk about marketing. Product, place, promotion, and that's more specific with construction marketing, right? Product, place, promotion, and price. This is the 4 P's, as I said. In the middle, the C stands for customer, right? How do we balance these and integrate these properly? Think of a bicycle wheel with finely tuned spokes so that it runs smoothly with our business and our overall higher level business plan and business strategy where we want to take the business. So we have to be thinking about these very individual ones and the mix that we're using with them. Because, you got to think about your product, but the product might also be affected by the price point. You can think about if you're building a house. Again, we'll use the custom built house. If we're going to, it's going to be a custom home, right? And it's going to be built on spec. Let's say that we're developing it, like our previous video lecture where we did ROI, return on investment. So we've got this product and we are developing it and we are determining the design and what's going to sell in a particular area. Where are we going to buy the land for this? What's the place? What's the location? Now, based on the product and the place, what price can we get for this? And of course, they integrate, right? Because, do we want to build a $4 million home in an area filled with $1 million homes? I don't think so, right? If that's the only game in town in that area is $1 million homes, you're not really in the right marketplace for that. You don't want to be the most expensive product in real estate in a area where the prices are much lower. So you want to look at what's the product, so then maybe it would change your design, or maybe it would change your location or your price, and a multitude, right? It's going to have to change our design and our price in that case. Or we change location, then maybe we don't have to. And how are we going to promote it, right? How are we going to sell it? Are we going to do it through a realty service? And then we've got to negotiate those terms. Is that going to be on a multiple listing service? How is it going to be advertised, etc.? So we can think about the mix and the 4 Ps in a lot of different ways. And we'll look at different classes. Of course, not just residential. We'll talk about business to customer or client and business to business setups. Who are our clients? Understanding that. So if we go through them, product, physical good, is it home renovations? Is it commercial work that we actually do? Is it a sub-trade or service that we do, like plumbing? Maybe we have a plumbing service where we have clean out drains, but maybe there's another sector to that business that we can also apply. Because we clean out drains, we get a lot of entry into people's homes, which means that we can build relationships from that. We can let them know that we do all kinds of other plumbing services as well. So one could be a leader into other areas. Unique things that our business does. There's this one example that I've got coming up in the next video lecture, which is a painting service that advertises that they do it in one day. They kind of blitz a home and they do it in one day. Very interesting concept, and we'll take a look at that. That's a different concept that you'll see normally provided. And for some people, maybe they don't want a lot of people coming in their house for a long period of time. They don't want the interruption. They're quite happy with that, or they want to sell their house very quickly and they want to turn it over. That might be a very good example for them. What's the quality level? So this is one-day painting service. Are you fast or are you the best? Well, I can tell you, if you get the best painters, they're not going to be trying to come in and go out in one day, right? As far as quality goes. I'm not saying this isn't a half-decent quality, but there's a limit to what you can do depending on the existing conditions of the walls. A lot with painting doing a good job is the prep work. More of it is the prep work. The easy part is actually the painting. Accessories. What other things can we add or provide? As I mentioned, a good example would be you do clogged drains, and then you also make sure that they know that you do faucet replacements, you do toilet replacements. Maybe you even do bathrooms, and then you subcontract to other contractors to do like the tile work and the base carpentry work, etc. I know a number of plumbing companies that work that way. Maybe with new sectors that have really sort of been flourishing over the last 5 to 10 years is BIM consulting services. Maybe there's a specific product where a lot of contractors, they're trying to get up to speed, or they don't want to make the specific investment, at least yet, that you provide building information modeling consulting services. And what's the breadth of that? What's the depth of that? That would depend on your overall strategy and business goals, but who would your clients be? Are you looking at the residential sector? Are you looking at the infrastructure sector? Are you looking at the commercial sector? Where is it that you first want to go after your clients? And that helps to build your experience levels in those areas as well. So we also want to look at, maybe you're just going to be providing design services or a combination of design services. I know a lot of design build contractors, and I remember one's motto was design small so we can build big. And what he meant from that was, I think it was Michael Upshall from Pro Built Homes. He used to come in and talk to my students, and he used to say that design small so you can build big. What he meant by that is, well, when you look at the overall cost of a project, the design is a small portion of the overall cost. But if we can get in and get to know the clients and build that relationship through the design process, they have the opportunity then that they can also get other prices once the design is done. And then we're going to be the favored or preferred contractor if we've done our job well through that design process. And usually you'll find in those cases, even if the client gets another price that's a bit higher, you've built a lot of trust with that contractor in the process. You still want them to do the work. Even if it's a few thousand extra in cost, you still want them to do the work because you believe in them and that they're going to provide the level of quality and service that you expect. So why would I want to go with somebody I don't know over somebody that I've got that level of quality and expectation? that can be a really good sort of strategy to build your business on. If you're not doing that, then you've lost that opportunity to get in the front door. So that's a competitive advantage if you look at that over a lot of other businesses. Warranty, any special conditions that you may provide, you might want to be careful on that one, just depending on what you're warranting, because that could have some extensive costs. Product lines, so what are you providing? And again, what are the products and services you're providing? You're just strictly in the commercial retail sector. You do just restaurants, right? So you just do restaurants. You go in and somebody wants to open up a restaurant. You've got all the skill sets, you've got all the trades for that, you've got all the consultants lined up, and this is people that you do work with all the time. You can develop a really good cost and quality advantage because this is what you do. You improve your productivity. If you're trying to do that and 1,000 other things, it's hard to compete against somebody that only does that because they're doing more of it than you are, and they get more skilled at it and they have a better understanding of it. So what product lines are you going after? And even looking at opportunities. As we come out of, say, a pandemic, and there's been a lot of disruption in the restaurant areas and a lot of restaurants closed, I suspect there's going to be a lot of new opportunities for those areas that some other entrepreneur, as the economy is getting better in that sector, may want to invest in, and that might be a really good niche to approach. Certainly wasn't a great niche during the pandemic, and that's the VUCA environment that I mentioned earlier. Branding. How do you want your business to be seen by the public, right? And there's a lot of things that we'll talk about with branding. But again, you could have a blog. You can contribute to some local sports teams and community events. You can really sort of display yourself outwardly to the public in other positive ways. You could develop a YouTube channel that really communicates some of your experience to try to educate people in a particular related topic on construction. And what that does is it builds your brand and it builds your credibility at the same time. Place, where? All right, so we can think about place in construction in a multitude of ways. If we are a ICI contractor, institutional, commercial, industrial, that might be more, where's our office going to be? Where's our shop or warehouse going to be that we do things? If you're a plumbing trades contractor, you might do a lot of prefabrication in that shop, or a HVAC mechanical systems contractor. You might have prefab shops where you put a lot of things together. Well, where are you going to locate? That would be looking at it from that perspective, right? If you're too far from, where most of your work is, so if most of your work is in downtown Toronto, if you're too far, then it's a lot in driving time back and forth, and there's a lot of extra cost there. On the other hand, if you're in downtown Toronto, you're probably going to pay rents through the roof, right? And you won't be able to afford it. So you have to think about that. Where's the best location that we can access our work environment? It might be at the intersect or near a major highway, so it might not be right downtown Toronto, but near major highways that at least you can get in and get out relatively easily. But again, that would dictate to other areas such as work hours and things of that nature, so you don't spend half your time in traffic. Also, businesses have to think about certain target locations. If you're a smaller contractor too, if you're in a big city, and take any city that you want to, whatever your city is. But if we're in Toronto, if you're a renovation contractor, I'm not so sure you want to be doing an addition on a house in Hamilton and another house in, say, Oshawa. If you want to go from one project to the other, you're probably looking at about 2.5 hours of drive time, and that's a lot of waste as well. So a lot of contractors, they'll try to target, sort of a geographical area, and that'll also tie to their marketing and advertising plan. If I advertise in this particular area, then there's where my work will more likely come from. And also there will be ways of getting referrals that will go on within that geographical area, meaning neighbors to neighbors, signage, etc. That falls out from that. It doesn't mean that you don't do any other work outside that circle, but very often your preference is within that when we consider drive times and times to go places. Although a lot of technology has changed as far as the video conferencing aspect that we can do, and that's kind of changing the way we look at things a little bit too. If your workers are on those sites, then that's probably okay, and you could probably do a quick video conference meeting with your workers on the other site if you needed to discuss something. They could even show you things with their cell phone, etc. So that's a little bit better than it was. In some of my discussions with some of the trade partners that I do work with very, very recently, one of them made this great example that, before we had this pandemic, I would go from Toronto to Burlington to meet with the architectural consultant, and it would take me an hour and a half to go there and an hour and a half to come back. So that's 3 hours of my day, and the meeting would be less than a half an hour. So 3.5 hours taken up, when now I just flick on, I go on to the video conference, and in a half an hour we're done. So I just saved 3 hours that I can use and put to something else. And he said, after COVID, I'm telling you, it's going to be different. Unless I absolutely have to be physically there, I'm going to do it this way because it makes a lot more sense. He fully believes in building the relationship aspect, but at the same time, do you really want to sit in traffic for an hour and a half and an hour and a half? So again, technology is changing the way we view things. I would also look at, whatever it is that you're reviewing in a marketing area, if books and other things, if they're even a few years old, you got to quantify, okay, so what's the difference between what this is saying and what's changed in the last 2 or 3 years with regards to technology? Because again, there might be some competitive advantages built in those changes that can help to accelerate your businesses. So that brings up the next one is promotion. And we'll be spending a lot more time on another video lecture in this particular area, but it really answers the question of sales. It's usually S&M, sales and marketing, right? So sales and marketing plans that we talk about when we talk about overall marketing development for your business. So who will sell your product, right? What training and incentives will be required? Now, it's not necessarily that you have a specific sales team, because again, in construction, we have what we call pursuits, right? Very often if it's a competitive environment and it's a bid process, it's a very structured process that might be geared around the lowest cost, particularly for government projects. But there may also be a number of other elements that come into it as well. There may be other point ratings for different things in the proposal. And so who will be putting that together, and who's going to be making sure that it's professional and it's presented properly, that it wows the client that they want to do work with us. Some it's very sort of set criteria that you follow, like I said, business basically to government agencies. And that's majorly because they have to protect the taxpayer, right? And show that they're not favoring some contractor over another contractor, and that there's no payoffs and unethical, immoral things happening in that process. But in the public sector, really companies are going to hire who they want to hire and who they feel is best qualified to do the work. And they don't have to get a multitude of prices. They don't have to do a lot of things. So there can be a lot of ways that you can definitely leverage your position that I want to do business with this company, right? We don't even want another price. We just want this company to do the work for us. There can be a lot of ways of doing it. And then you're not competing on price alone. You're competing on a number of other factors, which in construction, that can be a good thing, especially if you have some diversification in your business, that there's not all coming from being the low price. Certainly in construction, there'll be a certain amount, unless you've really sort of positioned yourself well and over time have built that kind of brand and reputation and are really successful in dealing in a certain market niche. Advertising. So sales, who's going to sell it? What training incentives will be required? Incentives, we're talking about motivational incentives. Are they getting a cut of their sales? How is that going to work? Advertising targets the kind of ads, media type, and who's going to be prepared by. So how much are we going to allocate in our financial plan to marketing the business, and how are we best going to spend that money if we have to spend it on advertising and promotion of our business? The other thing is publicity. Sometimes you can get publicity, and today it's more easier than ever, for free. So you can look at different areas and ways of utilizing that publicity. Again, you could have a blog, you could have you could work in an association, volunteer, and then you could be doing press conferences where your company gets some exposure. We'll dive into that more deeply in an upcoming video lecture. Price. Okay. In construction, it is a pretty important area, and understanding price is important. Go back and look at the financial statements videos that we discussed, and you'll understand markup and how important it is to make sure you cover your overhead, you target your profit levels, you understand your direct job costs, and you're able to do all that and compete in a very competitive marketplace. It's fine and dandy for me to say, these are the direct job costs, these are the overhead costs, and we want to get 10% profit. And we do all of that, but it's not going to be helpful if somebody else is doing it a lot cheaper and delivering just as good a product. I'll repeat that. Somebody else is doing it a lot cheaper and they're delivering just as good a product. They've really, and this gets into the operations side, and this is where my thinking, lean construction comes into play, where you add value, remove waste, you become more productive. If you know what you're trying to target, it ties to the marketing plan, it ties to the overall business plan. Because we don't want to be in a marketplace where we're not competitive on price. And I also mean, we could be in the very high end, high quality area, but even that area, there are limits to what your price points have to be. If there's somebody else that can build this $4 million house for $3.5 million and deliver the same quality, then why wouldn't I go with the $3,500,000? I would, right? So you have to be cognizant of that. That's why it's hard to be in too many sectors and also be super competitive on price, because you're not productive and skilled enough in any of the sectors. So that's where you can be beaten on those cases. So yeah, that's how that kind of integrates. Larger, now you may be sitting there and say, well, I know larger companies. I know a PCL or an Ellis Don or a Bird Construction. You know what? They're in industrial. They're in infrastructure. They build condos for developers. They do retail centers. They do institutions. But they've grown that over a long period of time, and they're large enough, they've divisionalized that effectively and managed those processes really well. So that's a little bit different. So I'm not slamming that that's wrong in any way, but that's a large construction, very, very large construction business. For the other ones that are a few tiers down, even mid-size, it's much more challenging because you don't have that kind of infrastructure of built into your financial statements, that kind of cash necessary to expand in those other areas yet. I will use a growth mindset word when I say yet, not that you can't do it, just it's difficult to do yet. So flexibility, and you do need. We talked a little bit about this in the financial statements when we talked about markup, but you definitely need to have some flexibility in your price, but you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot by cutting your profit or cutting your overhead. So you can usually do that by designing different options, having those options pre-estimated, easily quantified, so that you can say to the client, sure, I understand your budget is $100,000 less, and you know what, if we design this and we do X, Y, Z, I think you'll still get the end value that you're after, but it will cost $100,000 less. And that would be very helpful for the clients. And if you get really good at that, and then you start getting clients where you can actually work collaboratively with them, especially on the commercial side, that can be really helpful. And that's where I think Lean, again, positions itself really well with integrated project delivery models and work structuring methods that you're working closely with clients and consultants to come up with the best design that can effectively meet the cost and value requirements for the client. So just be careful, though, discounts and those things, that you are not cutting out your profit. And we've gone through that in the financial statement. So again, go back if you don't get that. Options. Yeah, you can give a lot of different options as well. As I mentioned, you could have different choices. You can also look at add-ons too with options. You can look at extras that can also be provided, value-added services that will increase the value to the client at a cost, which will build onto the price and value of your individual projects. Allowances, we can have, if there's things that allowances and contingencies, we can build that in. If there's things that we're not sure about, we can have allowances for, so the client, they can decide, do I want to have a $10 a square foot tile, or do I want to have a $25 a square foot tile? What do I want, right? So you could allow $10 per tile. Well, if they want to do 25, that's fine. It's just going to add $15 a square foot to it. So you're giving different options and flexibility to the client in those cases. Geographic terms, as I mentioned, if you're going to work in a different geographical area, well, don't forget about the extra cost of working there. Is this going to be worthwhile for you? An example I can remember where, this is a while back, but we had a project, and it was a government project, and we competitively bid on it. And you know what? We're in Toronto, it was in Hamilton. I didn't really want to go to Hamilton, but I thought, we're a little bit slow right now. If we got this, it would be okay if we got it at the right price. And I priced it very, very, very high because I've considered all the back and forth. It wasn't a difficult project for me to estimate because I've done a lot of projects like that in Toronto. And there wasn't a lot of bids on it. There was another bid, but fortunately that other contractor was also from Toronto. Nobody from Hamilton bid on it, and the government agency gave it to us, and we were just a little bit lower. I think the other contractor also padded a lot of geographic traveling expense and had a good profit margin built in, good contingency and management risk elements put into it. And we got the project, and it was probably the best project I ever had as far as profitability. So, but you've got to allow for it. I wouldn't want to try to take it like it's like doing the work here and then doing it there. It'd probably be one of the worst projects I ever did. So those are considerations with price when we're talking about construction businesses. What types of construction examples can we substitute in here? So I've been mentioning a few different examples of how we can put in different construction businesses with price. You could think about it yourself. So if you're thinking about a BIM consulting business, or you're thinking about a renovation business, or you're thinking about a new home construction business, or commercial retail or restaurant business, how would that fit in here with price? What's the existing in that marketplace? What are others doing? What could you do differently to differentiate yourselves? What are some of the constraints that are affecting pricing that you can't really be flexible on? And is there something that you can really sort of identify as a potential for a competitive advantage? Start thinking about those things right now, and that'll be helpful for you. It takes a lot of thought. This is not something that's like, boom, got it, done. Maybe for an assignment in a college course or a university course, but for your real business, it should be a very thought-provoking process. And if you get the engagement of others in the process, it can give you a lot of good ideas, as opposed to just hopping in and wherever the ocean takes us, it takes us. Maybe it takes us and we win, and those are the ones you hear about, or you don't hear about the 10,000 other ones that takes them down a sinkhole. So when we're thinking about that, it's the right combination of those. And as I said, it's not easy, and it depends on the sector, and it requires doing a fair amount of research and trying to find out as much information from as many people as you can. And it's iterative. there are adjustments. This is not going to be set in stone. You're going to get feedback as you start doing different things, and that will allow you to see what's working and maybe what's not working. And then you iterate and you adjust, you pivot. So the marketing plan itself is, in a business plan that we develop, is a statement of the marketing strategy and the time-related details for carrying out the strategy. So it really looks at the marketing mix, what we just talked about. So the mix will be offered to whom, the target market, and how long are we going to sort of planning to do this direction, right? And usually it's going to be a marketing plan. It's usually going to be looking at a year or two outward, but you may have marketing campaigns that you just do things in a short period to see and get feedback on. One company resources will be needed at what rate? A blitz or more incremental over time? What results are expected? So what are we hoping that we will see as a result of that? And that ties over to our overall business plan. How is it going to impact sales and profitability? How are you going to measure it? It's good, like we said, SMART goals. Go back, look at the other earlier videos, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound, when we're developing the market plan, so we can see how are we doing. We got a good sense of how we're doing, right? And it gives us a good feedback mechanism. And as we go, what works, we can do more of. What doesn't work, we can determine, well, did it not work because we didn't do it long enough? Or did it not work for XYZ? Can we adjust it? Or should we ditch it, right? So it ties into that feedback loop. The marketing plan process, we can break it down into situational analysis, right? We got to look at the external environment, the political, economical, social, technological. What do I mean by political? All right, well, if there is currently a pandemic, or in the past a pandemic, we could look at, well, there's lockdowns. What does that mean? That's going to be meaning different. That means that we better position ourselves as a safe operating construction business. So if we're going to be operating in existing premises, it means we're going to be following all the medical protocols and then some. And what does that mean? And what does that look like? That's just one quick example. Economical, then that's the economy. How is it impacted by things? If it's 2008 when you have a financial crisis and we're a business, like a residential business, we better be looking at how can we provide this house at a lower cost? And could we change the options? Stuff we had standard before, maybe we want to downgrade some of them. So we can go through each of those external factors. Social, if obviously we have climate change and everybody is concerned about that, is there something we can do in our construction processes that provides for a more energy efficient structure that contributes to the environment instead of takes away from it? Maybe it's offering a net zero design, meaning the house produces as much as it uses as much as it produces from an energy perspective. If it's from a commercial perspective, maybe it's that it satisfies a certain LEED designation, leadership in energy efficient design. Those are a bunch of factors that come into it. Technological, well, with the building automation systems and the way that we're integrating today, our smart buildings, that's another opportunity. Or that may mean that there's opportunities too in the way that we build and construct. Consumer analysis, where is the opportunities? Part of that is making sure you've done your due diligence, your homework in that area. So you can look at some of the demographics and the behaviors that are going on. And I try to lower the river and expose the rocks and see where there's some obstacles, but also look for where there's opportunities. Competitive analysis. What kind of marketplace are we competing in? Is it really saturated? Is it difficult to enter? High cost? How can we enter that channel to be more effective? And then, of course, there's the external factors. How does this tie to what we've been discussing? And it should be feeding and feeding back. It's kind of a feedback loop. So it's not all just one-way direction, because I would hope in the development of the overall goals, we would have been looking at these external factors, right, for the business. We're not just coming out with these ideas out of thin air with no kind of background research been done in those areas. So what are our objectives? And then that ties to defining marketing objectives, which is your goals. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound, and are you committed to it? Do you have confidence, self-efficacy that you can achieve it? What is the knowledge base of the company, our company resources, and past performance? How have we done in the past? Who are our clients up to this point? If we've got a long history in this particular area, where have our successes been? And where does that look like for the opportunities in the future? Are we going to expand into another sector? Are we going to piggyback on some skills that we built or some relationships that now we can expand upon? Are we going to hire based on that? So all of that's feeding into that information. It helps to clarify the goals of the marketing plan, potential opportunities, the potential problems, so we can figure out and resolve them. We're being proactive with this. That's part of it. To expose the rocks. Here's the problem. Let's figure out a strategy around that. Let's have some contingencies in place in case this happens. What are our risk levels in this? What are our opportunities with this? And because there's so many choices, we have to determine what's the best avenues to select our marketing strategies and what's our best. Like I said, if you try to be everything to everybody, you're going to be nothing to no one, right? That's really what it comes down to. And so we want to identify possible market segments, the areas that we want to address, that we want to target. You can always grow them later and expand into other ones as you grow the business. Generate possible marketing mixes that will really that group will identify with, right? Developing the market mix sub-strategies. And the product, price, place, and promotion. So now we're digging in deeper. So we've got that high level that we've really sort of worked, and now it's getting more narrowed down. And as you can see, then when you have a good idea of where you're targeting, now we're getting into, okay, so specifically on the product, specifically on the price, specifically on the place, specifically on the promotion, because we did all that legwork up here, which is kind of like a giant filter funnel that's feeding this in, and we're getting more detailed as we go. And then of course, if we've got that and we've developed it, then we want to act on it. And we want to act on it. We want to implement the plan, ensure proper resources. We want to monitor it, right? And we want to adjust, tweak. So it really ties to a process called PDCA or PDSA. And this is part of the quality control, quality assurance area. Any of you that have that kind of background will be well familiar with it. It's also called the Deming cycle or the Short cycle. And it's plan, do, check, act, right? So we're planning it. We're doing a lot of the planning here, right? So we're doing a lot of planning, which is coming through here, and then we're actually doing it, and we're checking it, and we're going to adjust it, right? So this is, even though it's one arrow, it's actually a lot in that PDCA cycle. And it's also known as PDSA, plan, do, study, act. Again, we are studying this, we are checking this, we are getting feedback on this, and we're doing it. And we might want to do some first run studies, that we try some particular advertising program before we go all in to see what's the feedback, what does this work. And that cycle of process within the marketing side, it's giving you good understanding of what your marketplace is. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's an excellent way to form the foundation for the marketing of your business. So I hope this has given you a good intro to marketing defined, related to construction, and how we can apply it. And in the next few videos, we're also going to be expanding in this topic a little bit before we dive into other areas such as the human resource plan, motivation, engagement, leadership, etc. So if you enjoyed this, as I said, I've got a description of a bunch of other videos in this down below. And also, if you subscribe, help support this community that we're building here, construction professional community. Click subscribe and look under the playlist where you will see construction business management for all of the listings of the courses, as I've got more that I'll be posting in the next little while. So I'm Tom Stevenson, wishing you a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.